Hi guys.
Hello.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. So the format of our talk today, I'm going to start with a brief kind of what is Google Glass. As you can see, I'm a Google Glass explorer. I was part of the first wave of Google Glass explorers. I've been wearing glass pretty much nonstop since the end of June. And I will give a sort of brief 5 to 8-ish minute, hopefully less, on what is Google Glass, how does it work, how am I using it. I'm going to hand it over to Chris, who's going to talk a similar amount of time on, kind of his work into productivity and wearable technology. And then our presentation piece is going to end with Rene. He's going to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing, that Pearson is doing in the education forum as it relates to wearables. And then we're going to swing back around. Hopefully, you guys will have lots of questions that we'd love to answer. Does that make sense? Feel good? Okay. So, as I said, I'm a Google Glass explorer. I actually was picked via the Twitter competition that Google ran last February during TED, where they asked, what would you do if you had glass? And I will tell you that my personal pet peeve, and I've already seen it a million times since I've been in London, since yesterday morning, and every day in my life in Atlanta, is looking at everybody staring down at their phones. You see it anytime there's a moment of repose, that's what everybody does. And so I said, hashtag if I had glass, I would look people in the eye more often. And surprise, surprise, I actually have found it to be true. So the first thing I wanted to kind of share with you, how many people here have tried on Google Glass or worn it? Okay, as of a few minutes ago. So definitely throughout the conference, if you see, Rene has it, I have it, feel free, come up, ask me, try it on, experience it for yourself. So what is Google Glass and how does it really work? So in case you're not familiar, Google Glass is a wearable computer with an optical head-mounted display. And so it displays information in sort of a smartphone-like, hands-free augmented reality way. And so I first asked myself this question as I started to dive deeper into this world of wearables. So who cares about a heads-up display? It looks kind of weird. It's super noticeable. I can't tell you the stares I've been getting on the underground when I've been wearing it. So this is why, I think, right? That's the picture on the right is my husband and I at an event. Like I said, I hate it, but I'm the worst offender. If I'm not wearing my glass, you can assume that I'm probably going to be looking at my phone. And I think as the world of wearables morphs, I actually think about a watch. To me, a watch seems like a step in the wrong direction, right? Because even when my watch isn't smart at all, but if you and I are talking and I look at my watch, what's the first thing you think of? I'm done with you, right? You're boring me, I've had enough, I'm moving on. So to me, I'm not sure the form factor of a watch makes a lot of sense as you think about sort of where this world is going. So people ask me this, second to, are you recording me? Or are you a RoboCop? This is the next question. So what do you see? So this is what the home screen looks like if you put it on. It's simple, just a black backlit time and OK Glass. So OK Glass is the magic word. And it allows you some really basic things. So you can take a picture, record a video, get directions to, send a message to, make a call to, or hang out with. So really all the functionality that Google affords is available here. And then of course, as more and more developers are using the newly released Glass Development Kit, there's all kinds of other things. But I think these are really the core. And so people ask, is it on all the time? Isn't that worse than looking at your phone? Isn't it so distracting? The fact is it's not on all the time. You actually have to go through some steps to turn it on. So you can either tap it or there's a head wake-up angle. So for me, I'm rather short. So I actually had to set my head wake-up angle, especially acute, because I found that when I first got it, it was on anytime I looked at anybody. So you have to look up, and if you look up, it turns on. So industries are already using glass. These are sort of the bleeding edge, and I know Rene's going to talk a little bit about how education is looking at glass. But some of the ones I thought that were pretty interesting, so healthcare. So there's been a lot in the news about how doctors and medical schools are using glass to share with their students kind of a first-person, in real-time account of how a surgery is going. Another doctor is using it to look at x-rays and MRI scans while they're in the midst of what they're doing, so they don't have to step away from the patient to really have all the information that they need to make good choices during surgery. Public safety, so Georgia Tech in my backyard has done a study with police officers thinking about what are the use cases, and they found a number. So when you get pulled over for speeding, it's actually pretty dangerous for the police officer to approach the vehicle, not knowing who's in there. The only information they have is really the license plate. And then when they take your driver's license, usually, I don't know how they do it in the UK, but in the US they scan the license plate, but their scanners are in their car. So if you think about physically, they have to take it and then turn around. Well, you're pretty mad that you just got pulled over, right? So, that's a really vulnerable place for them to be. So thinking about, is there a use case to use the scanner in glass to make a police officer's life less dangerous? So what about me? I told you I've been wearing it for about 5.5 months. I'm finding the glass helps me be more effective in my personal life. So I have 3 kids. I get them ready in the morning every day for carpool. And so this is my 5-year-old. I typically get a text from the person who drives my carpool, but I always have my phone on silent or I forget about it. And then so I'm constantly looking at my phone to see, did she text me already? Is she coming? We're going to be late. So this is my 5-year-old putting on his coat while I'm trying to see, did I miss the text that says that now we're late? So when I wear it, I get the text sort of right in front of me while I'm actually able to engage in a real way. So what's the weather like today? My daughter, that's not her, that's a cute version of her. So she is kind of a diva. She's 8 when it comes to getting dressed in the morning. And the funny thing is her school wears uniforms. So you would think that it would be all about sort of what's the weather like today. I used to have to go outside and check. Now I can actually, while I'm in the closet staring at her million uniforms, just look and see it's 73 degrees. You can wear a short sleeve uniform. So, but what about at work? Downstairs, Ben talked about this idea that glass and its type are about sort of like that curation or distillation feature. I think that's absolutely accurate. So I don't know about you, but I get a gajillion emails a day. And so when I would get the alert on my phone, all I get is a buzz. It doesn't tell me, is this from LinkedIn? Is it somebody favoriting my tweet? I don't care about that. I certainly don't need that immediately the minute it comes in. But an email from my boss, I do kind of want right away. And so glass does a really great job of kind of distilling out the things that I care much less about. So my email now feels a little bit more like this. I told you that I think I told you that I'm really bad at directions. So normally when I leave my house to get in my car, I get really nervous about where I'm going. I was really proud using my glass this morning. I only got lost one time. So before I had glass, this is how I used to handle it. I know it's terrible. I know I shouldn't look at my phone while I'm driving, but I had no other choice but to look at my GPS. Now, this is what it looks like, and we can talk a little later if you have questions about driving with glass. I know there's a lot in the news about it. I have my thoughts on that. And then traveling for business. So what I'm doing right now, I don't live in London. Not at all familiar with the world that is here, but now this is what I did this morning. I said, okay, glass, get directions to Ravensbourne. It said take the Central Line to Jubilee, get off at this place, and turn this way. And I will tell you that the only time I got lost is before I started the directions and turned the wrong way out of my hotel. So glass can't solve for you having bad physical spatial relations. And I think the most powerful is sort of the minimal. So having the opportunity to kind of record and share your own perspective in real time. I don't have to grab out my phone, swipe it on, try to capture that picture that by the time I've done that has already moved away. And then, of course, there's sort of the Hangout feature. When you use Google Hangout with Glass, what's really cool is you don't see an awkward picture of me, like I'm doing a newscast. You see what I see. So I think that there's so many opportunities through Glass to share what I see. And so I'm going to leave my part of this to say, what are some of the ways that, in your life that you think Glass might be able to help us or help you in the future?
Okay, so I'm in the management school at Goldsmiths. This is an interesting panel because it's really a real variety of topics. So our research is on the really sharp end of the productivity and performance in the workplace and the relationships with wearables to corporate activity. I'm just going to walk you through our initial, there's a two-phase research. We've been doing it with Rackspace. The first phase was the transition from novelty to lifestyle, and this phase that we're currently involved in now is this translation of wearables from lifestyle to productivity and performance. Some of the things might be a little ominous when you consider them, but we'll have a lot of opportunity in the question time to kind of relate to how that works. So our original study was 26 participants in depth over 4 months. We spent time with them with a variety of wearables. We also did a survey of 4,000 adults in the US and the UK in relation to their usage of wearables and how it impacted. And this is in relation to the lifestyle one. So we got an enormous amount of press coverage around this. Wearables are very hot right now, obviously, and research in this area is quite rare, especially the depth that we covered it off. But a lot of it focused on Glass. A lot of it was around one of the particular things that we got out of the quantitative survey, which is that 1 in 5 people wanted Google Glass banned from public places. Similarly, in the survey indicated that 1 in 5 people would be willing to share their data with government if it meant better public services. So there was a kind of a paradox in the, a real conflicting indicators in the overall response.
Fitter, happier, more productive, comfortable, not drinking too much.
So in the survey, that's Radiohead, right? We saw, remarkable results around the people with wearables feeling more intelligent, more informed, more efficient, more self-confident, more in control. 82% of Brits, 71% of Americans believing it enhances their lives, boosts their personal abilities. Remarkable across the board impact. And if you haven't immersed yourself in a wearable world, then you may not be familiar with a lot of these results and the idea of what this might mean in your lives. But 4,000 people across wearable tech users in the 2 countries, quite an interesting idea. 34% feeling more attractive with their wearable tech. But in terms of the social impact on individuals, huge. So it also was very intimate. We got responses from people like this. As you can see today, it's not gone well so far. He's looking at 2 graphs, one that shows the amount of activity he's done that day, the other how much sleep he got. He's had a bad night's sleep. A kind of reality check in real time, all the time for people, either propelling or reducing their anxieties and their daily activities around that. We classed our wearable tech into 5 different classes: facilitators, explorers, utilities, biometrics, and raptness. There's some examples of some of the tech that we played around with. So that ranges from everything from, the Muse is a headband that's analyzing mental activity, Oculus Rift, a head-mounted display, the autographer in Glass, wearable cameras, and so on. So, this technology is changing all the time, and in our new experiment, we've again adapted the types of technology we're using. It's moving so fast that many of the prototypes that we worked with at the time, which weren't even in public release, which is only 6 months ago, already not cutting edge within the marketplace. So, a startling time for innovation within the sector, and also transformation around what it does. We identified 6 different archetypes. of users, the curious, the controllers, the quantified selfers, the self-medics, finish line fanatics, and the ubiquitors. These were classes of users that exhibited certain personality and behavioral characteristics when using the wearable tech. You know, a lot of you would probably fall in the curious category. Those are usually the people who haven't yet fully adopted the technologies, whereas the rest of them generally refer to people who have made use of it in some way. Self-medics, for example, you know, the quote there, one of the things that makes it so valuable to me is it prevents delusion. Self-medics dealing with a lot of anxieties, feeling betrayed by the medical system, their GP not taking their considerations seriously, every day reporting back, and in fact finding that if they thought, oh, I had a terrible sleep last night, I'm incredibly anxious, and then looking and saying, actually I didn't, I slept well, reduce your anxiety, think again about your condition. Finish line fanatics, and there's a lot of products, and when we work with vendors, then we often try to look at what they're targeting here. These are effectively target markets for wearable tech innovations. I'm not going to go through these in any detail. When we have the questions, if you want to ask me any questions about this part of the study, then feel free. One of the things that came up really is, we looked at people who were incentivizing for data. So you look at the black boxes that are in cars right now, where if you drive safely, then your insurance premiums are a lot lower than they would be, and it's because the car is tracking your every movement. It's also advising you how to drive more safely. If you drive recklessly while you have the device in your car, then your premiums shoot up. So it's a real-time metric against your premium. So if you consider yourself a safe driver, if you follow the rules of the road to a T, then you'll find yourself receiving lower and lower and lower premiums. If you drive recklessly in any condition, then you'll find your premiums going up. So right now, if you went to get insurance premium from any UK provider, you'll find that the cheapest by far premium available to you is that which allows, if you're allowing them to put the box in your car. In about 2 or 3 years' time, that's not going to be an option. The box is going to be in every car. So at that stage, insurance premiums will be a real time, and this is all about getting at the raw data, right? There's the kind of reporting, which is mixed with, all the things that human characteristics have, where we can blend in our own perspective on things. Are you a safe driver? You can tell me, or I can look at your data. I'd much rather look at your data if I'm an insurance company. You might not want me to, because you might be telling me that you're a safe driver, but eventually that leads to everybody either driving safely or paying enormous premiums because there's nowhere to hide your driving performance. So if your data is bad in the car, then you've got a big problem. Now, if it moves to wearable tech, which it is at the moment, then if your data about your human activity is bad, if you smoke, if you don't eat well, if you don't exercise enough, you're going to pay much higher life insurance premiums in real time as well. And that's going to be correlated in the same way as it is in the vehicles and all the rest of it. So what if your data is bad is a big, big question. There's an enormous incentive for good data in wearable tech and a real disincentive for bad data, and an idea that maybe you need to hack your wearable tech, possibly, which we saw from the controllers who would hack their data before it would get live on Facebook or whatever when they talk about how much exercise they did. We would see the reporting data on the devices, then we'd see what they're reporting on Facebook, and there'd be a discrepancy. And they're effectively hacking the public reflection of their behaviors and attitudes. So in productivity, what are we looking at? Devices right now are way too isolated. They need to be intra-connected. They need to speak to each other on the body. They're not doing that very well. Way too many vendors. It needs to consolidate in the market. Interconnectivity from the device to the cloud. Again, way too many connections, way too many disparate things. We're looking at a human cloud service where all your data would go to a single location. From there, you could barter and trade with vendors and suppliers against your productivity data. And primarily, we're looking at human cloud correlations, which is correlations between performance data in the back end of corporate systems and the human body. So we add the data from the human body, your biometric data, to analytics and insights within an organization, which we believe is the missing link in the ingredient. So again, you say you're good under stress, let me see your data. You're a broker, you tell me that you perform best under certain conditions, when you're on 2 pints or whatever, show me the data. If that's true, then I'm happy for you to have 2 pints. I don't care, right? So again, nowhere to hide. Everything that's going on right now in the big data space is about removing the human layer of reporting and getting to the raw primary data. And the same thing's happening in wearables. And the idea is if you can get at the primary data, then you don't need reporting because we can just see the data. So for workplace assessment and selection, psychometric tests right now are used. You'd much rather get the real-time data from the body, from the behavior of the worker in the workplace, which will help you. So if you're going to a new job and you say, and you're a broker and you say, I'm incredible under stress, just hand over your biometric data and show them. And that's much more valid than saying you are, working there for 3 months under trial, people finding out that you're just a bullshitter or whatever, right? So it all comes out in the flush with this stuff. There's nowhere to hide around it. Everything moving up the stack away from hardware and towards software. So that's a big, big thing. And the sharpest end of it that we're looking at, epigenetics and fortification. So fortification works around, biofortification you may be familiar with. Get a yam, put vitamin A in it, and you can reduce a lot of prenatal issues and so on. You can similarly do that in the workplace, so we can fortify a workplace. We can implement certain wearable technologies which in effect will have a transformative effect on the workspace itself, and the workers, rather than self-reporting around those things, would be subject to a kind of corporate environment, no different than when they hand you a laptop and a cell phone. They'll now hand you pieces of wearable tech that'll be part of the kit within the corporate performance unit, which will help with that fortification. Epigenetics at the very cutting edge of that. Blue-headed wrasse, fish that change sex when the males are eaten rather than wait around for another male. We're talking about wearable futures here. So 30, 40 years down the road, wearable tech that has an epigenetic, you're changing environmental conditions, even if it's the immediate body environmental conditions, can change blood flow in the brain, can change factors turning on and off genetic considerations, which could help, create a new mutant. Right, so I was asking Wendy whether she feels a change in the blood flow in her brain from wearing that device for the last 5.5 months. She thought I was asking her whether that meant, the electromagnetic stuff and whether that was harming her to have it on. I was thinking more, is she augmenting her genetic makeup in effect by wearing this kind of device?
Well, didn't you say people feel smarter? Maybe I actually am smarter.
Yeah, it's not just a feeling of it again. It could be a biological impact. So that's the research that we're working on.
So I'm part of a small R&D team within Pearson. I'm sure at least the UK folks may know Pearson. Pearson is a big company. I'm lucky to be in a small startup, I think, ourselves. A small R&D unit that works across all Pearson businesses. So Pearson is very strong in education, so we can provide you with infrastructure, with plenty of content, whether you're in kindergarten, school, university, college, or even workplace. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And then we also own the Financial Times Group, so more on the business side. And then lastly, we, until recently, owned fully Penguin, which is now merged with Random House to create the biggest conglomerate of English-speaking publications, I guess. And I've got the pleasure to work across all of these different fields, but my focus is really on education. And by trade, I'm a product manager. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but product manager is basically the person who makes, who works with people, mainly developers and designers. Right? They're the smart people, and I'm just the person who facilitates with them and comes up with sometimes with some neat ideas and speaks to the business as a marketing, a salesperson, an educator, for example, a teacher, and tries to find out what they really want technology to do for them. At the end of the day, it's as simple as we want technology buys them time as a teacher. If you're in a classroom, technology in theory should buy you time to focus on the teaching rather than on handling your logins and the technology itself. You've probably all seen it in our school time or even at home. So I'm wearing glass. I'm not I'm just an occasional wearer, and I wear it when I go out and speak to our colleagues across the globe and just make them aware of this, what it actually does, what it is, what it feels like, and I give it to them and they're like, oh wow, this is super amazing. Well, yes, it is, but also it can do, at the moment at least, just a few things, but it does those quite well actually. So, and within our team, we usually get hardware like this or software that we want to try out and want to see is there any value for any Pearson business to be exploring this, because it may have an impact on them in, let's say, 6 to 12 months' time. So we signed up, or a colleague of mine in the US signed up because I'm not allowed as a UK resident, not yet at least. So he went there to Google's developer conference last year. He signed up, he paid $1,500 on the door to sign up, and he hadn't even seen the device. Right? So, but, we knew pretty much what it's going to be like, so we wanted to have it and explore it. We finally got it in August, and then Chris and Dennis, my colleagues in the US, they went to their local high school and they wanted to see what it's like in a sort of educational environment. You know, what would it be like for an instructor to be using this and teaching or instructing an automotive class, so how to repair a car, for example, in the actual setting. And this is where the video kicks in. It's only 3 minutes or so, so not going to take too long. But I'm sure it's a good idea.
Google Glass is a mobile hands-free Android computer the user wears like a pair of glasses. It's only currently available in a developer pre-release version and costs $1,500. When thinking of a prototype for Glass, the obvious approach is to implement a mobile app which utilizes the API made available by Google. Unfortunately, the input and heads-up display of Google Glass is very limited compared to a smartphone. It's also very common to hear users complain of mild nausea while trying to read the heads-up display. Due to its lack of release date and very high cost, it's unlikely that we'll see broad consumer adoption or one-to-one classroom use at any time over the next 6 to 12 months. This created some interesting constraints. First, we would need to do something unique to the device, which didn't replicate an existing smartphone capability. We don't want to assume that consumers or students will have access to the device, but perhaps an instructor would. Finally, we don't want to make our users sick by having to spend too much time reading the heads-up display. Our concept was to use the video conferencing capabilities of Glass in a vocational training setting. This capability is available out of the box with Google Glass, as it's fully compatible with Google Hangouts. While Google Glass can be worn over regular prescription glasses or sunglasses, they aren't compatible with the safety glasses he needs to wear when teaching students. Now it's time to get to work, simulating a classroom procedure while recording the audio and video with Glass. We used a cheap LED headlamp to help illuminate the dark areas underneath the car. Otherwise, in normal classroom lighting, it isn't needed. The wide-angle lens on the camera is great for working on things up close. One of the first things we noticed as a problem with the camera is that whatever you're looking at is actually filmed a little bit lower than your eye line. The camera doesn't have a vertical adjustment, but the instructor might be able to adapt to this by pointing his head slightly up while he's doing the procedure. It didn't seem like a big problem at the time, but when we look at the footage later, you can see we really should have adjusted that spot beam from the LED headlamp. It's totally adjustable and could have been much wider. The microphone worked great for this and had excellent noise cancellation.
If you weren't paying attention before, we're going to use a spring suspension today. What kind of suspension is it? Okay, we're going to use the Socratic method to make sure you remember this.
While the heads-up display is deliberately not directly in front of the user's field of vision, you can see it peripherally. This became a problem after a while when we were doing procedures and we noticed that we started to get just a little bit distracted by what was going on in the display. We'd be checking to make sure that the video that appeared in the display was framing correctly as to what we were seeing with our own eyes, and that could be a potential safety concern, or at least requires some training or getting used to by the instructor. Still, high school does have faculty Wi-Fi, but we weren't able to reach it from the shop. The school is in somewhat of a cellular dead zone, so we weren't able to use our LTE hotspot backup either. We've noticed this with Glass in the office as well. The Wi-Fi reception just isn't as good as a regular Android phone. For classroom deployment, you're going to need a robust access point in the same classroom as the instructor. So some learned lessons for our prototype. Number one, auto class has some unique safety concerns, and we might want to try some other voc tech first with Hangouts like cooking or woodshop. Also, you definitely can't assume that the existing school Wi-Fi will be usable if they have Wi-Fi at all. Glass has a very limited Wi-Fi radio, and a dedicated access point will be needed for deployment. Finally, it's really important that the instructor be properly trained in how to use Glass in the classroom. He needs to know how to adjust his camera, adjust his lamp, and be comfortable with actually having Glass on while teaching the class so that he doesn't create a safety hazard for himself.
Yeah, so just a quick snapshot of week's school class. And it was literally just an afternoon where they went to their local high school and said, that's what we do. So we want to find out quickly. And it could be an afternoon, it could be a few days, up to maximum 3 months, and we actually give ourselves to explore new technologies. And then we build stuff with Pearson Business and then hand it over to them for them to either put it further, pilot it in the real sort of life, and maybe if it goes well, and then roll it out as a product. Yeah.
well-planned amount of time.
Yeah, but yeah, we're open for questions as well. So if you want to ask any questions around our experience with glass, or our work, or anything really goes.
How can we help you?
Sorry, I'm not sure how long you can actually wear glass until it starts to kind of maybe is it safety or?
So in the beginning, like, so I went, oh, sure, you want to
Sorry,
stand
I
up
just wanted
maybe
to
say
know in
loud?
respect to time frame, how long they can wear glass until it kind of.
When do you get dizzy, basically, wearing
Yeah.
this?
So actually, I don't find that it makes me nauseous, but when I went to Google to get it originally, they actually said you should not wear it all day, every day from the beginning. So I actually did build up. So when I first got it, I wore it maybe an hour at a time. It actually, I didn't get a headache, but it made my eyes water at first because you definitely have to focus your eyes in a different way. I now wear it pretty much all day, every day, although I find that when I'm meeting with someone who doesn't have it, there's kind of an asymmetry that's a little uncomfortable. So you'll sometimes see me do this, just like I maybe would put my phone in my purse. If I wasn't, if I was meeting with someone where it wasn't appropriate to have my technology out, same. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Is it waterproof?
Is it waterproof?
Resistant.
Resistant. Yeah.
There's actually a very famous guy who worked for Rackspace, Robert Scoble, who he was one of the first glass users and took a video of himself. His wife took a video of him wearing it in the shower, cut from here up only, and it worked afterward. I don't think they would recommend it.
And it's also, at the moment, it's too expensive to try it out, so I wouldn't.
Not willing to gamble $1,500 on whether or not it works in the
Otherwise,
shower.
the company.
Can I just ask about, you said that you wanted to use glass because you wanted to look people in the eye more. Do you find people look you in the eye less because you're wearing it? And like, what experiences have you had where people are?
That's actually a great question. And I think that speaks a little bit to the asymmetry of the experience. I think longer term, as more people are wearing it, I think what I thought would happen will happen more. But I do think, when I first got it and started wearing it at work, people ask me all the time, isn't that so distracting? And I think what they were trying to say is, that is so distracting for me. So I tried to be sensitive to that. I do think it's almost like a token that reminds me to do what I said I was going to do. So I do think I look people in the eye more often, but I do think you're right. I think that for other people, it's sometimes disconcerting to look at me.
I guess it's all with this sort of technology. I mean, first, you're like, oh, it's a shiny device or whatever you have in your hand, or you're really comfortable with it, so you need to get time to get comfortable with it. But then after a while, I don't know, maybe after 5 months or so, you actually get so used to it, so it's there, but it doesn't distract you from anything, I guess. And it's just the people who are not aware of it, or see it for the first time, that they need to see, of course, which is natural. And wonder, why is this, and why is this wearing? Why is this person wearing it? And are they recording me, or what's going on?
That's the number one question.
Yeah, that's why you probably get a lot of discussion on privacy and all the other aspects that come with it. These concerns that always happen. I think this is not a Google sales pitch, but I think Google are one of the great companies. Besides other stuff that they do, that actually constantly drive sort of new explorations, and I think it's great to do that. And of course, you sort of track a lot of feedback or inquiries, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. But as I say, in a few years' time, we'll all be wearing, not all of us, some of us will be wearing similar things, as that, and then everybody will just take it for granted and don't worry about it. And one last point, I don't know how much time you spend on Facebook, for example, but younger generations, like the teens and stuff, if 13 plus, I guess you have to be. But for them, they have a totally different sense of digital identity, right? So they share across many sites with anyone they know or do not know either. Whereas my generation, and maybe we do have a bit of a concern there. I'm not sure if I want to share that, or am I really sharing? Because I'm looking at the T's and C's of a site that I sign up to, and these kids today, they don't really care. And again, for us, it may be somewhat uncomfortable. For them, it's natural, right? And it's going to be that way anyway.
How do your kids
feel about you wearing that?
So my kids are kind of used to it, and I'll tell you, I actually last Thursday, my oldest is 11, and I took it with me to talk about in his 5th grade class. And I had popped in a few weeks ago, you know, when I was in school, and I almost got ambushed, literally. Like, all the kids in his class were like, oh my God, your mom has Google Glass. It was actually the only place that I didn't have to first say what it is. Everybody knows what it is, and my 11-year-old came home the day I spoke in his class. It was supposed to be a 45-minute talk, and it ended up being like, you know, an hour and 15 minutes, and they were still talking. I'm like, I really gotta go, I'm sorry. He came home and he said, Mom, everybody said that you were amazing. I am so much more popular now. So my feeling was, I'm so glad he's 11 and not 14. Because I think if he was 14, they would be like, oh, your mom has glass and you don't? But I do think that they're kind of excited about it. They're certainly much more aware of technology. To your point, I think that for their age and younger, it's just going to be a given. I don't think it's going to, I think that what we're struggling with now is just going to be irrelevant by the time my 5-year-old is an adult.
Wendy, can I just ask a question, sort of just to build on that, which is, as an early adopter, what kind of behavioural change have you seen in the use of glass for you? Because there's kind of two aspects to this question. One is a lot of wearable tech is very precise in terms of what it does for you. Obviously, Google Glass has a variety of different uses. So I'm just interested to see whether there is behavioural change in terms of things that you do now that you didn't do before in the way in which you did because of the glass.
I think there's one big one, and I just also want to be sensitive to, I know we're getting close to the end, so I don't want to run over for whoever's next. Are we okay?
For the last question, yeah.
Okay. To answer that quickly, and then we can talk further later, I do actually think what I said I was going to do, which is look people in the eye more often. I actually think that I am much more aware of my milieu, like of my surroundings, than I ever used to be. I was one of the worst offenders of any time I wasn't engaged. I would stare into that like seductive portal that is my phone or my iPad or whatever. It actually is a physical reminder that I should look up and be engaged and be excited about the world around me. So I think that's, for me, the biggest behavioral change.
Great. Thank you so much. It was really interesting.